Next on the Rockbridge Report, President Trump hosted a rally this week. See the controversial claim he made about COVID-19. And reporter Zach England will tell you the plans for schools in Lexington to bring students back into the classroom, while Buena Vista considers a new school building. And then, firefighters are finally seeing their efforts pay off in parts of California. We'll hear from a local biology expert about why the record-breaking number of major fires could continue, even as they get some under control. And later, Shauna Muckle will preview a big change in the weather for this weekend. All that and more on this edition of the Rockbridge Report.
Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news from Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Donald LeCompte and I'll be joined later by my co-anchor Lily Mott, weather with Shauna Muckle and Brennan Black on sports. Democrats are pointing a finger at President Donald Trump for hosting rallies that are potential super spreader events. The president is using his own battle with COVID in a bid to win support from populations where the pandemic is a big issue. CNN's Jim Acosta reports.
Slumping in the polls with 20 days to the election, President Trump is sounding more detached from reality, arguing that many Americans can go back to their pre-pandemic lives even as coronavirus cases are soaring across the U.S.
We must allow lower-risk Americans to resume normal activity.
The president is boasting about the large crowds at his recently resumed rallies, despite warnings from health experts that they are potential super spreaders.
We're having lines of people, 30, 40, 50,000 people lining up to see a speech with 1 day notice, and my opponent is getting 22 people with working very hard to get him.
Recovering from his own bout with the virus, Mr. Trump is claiming without evidence that people who've had COVID-19 are now immune from catching it again, when scientists warn that may not be the case.
To everyone fighting to recover from the virus, I feel your pain because I felt your pain, and we will beat this virus together. And for those, who has had it? Who has had it here? Who's had it? Yeah, a lot of people, Well, you're the people I want to say hello to because you're right now immune. You're right now immune, or they say that.
Even as some in his own party worry the president's medical misinformation may be alienating elderly voters, Mr. Trump is suggesting Democrat Joe Biden should be in a nursing home. Another key demographic turned off by the president, suburban women, a problem Mr. Trump tried to address in Pennsylvania.
Suburban women, will you please like me? Remember? Please. I saved your damn neighborhood, okay?
With this week's debate scrapped, the president and Biden will be holding dueling town halls on Thursday night. Top administration health experts, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, have reviewed Mr. Trump's latest test results, with the National Institutes of Health saying in a statement they affirm that all current evidence indicates that the president is not infectious for anyone else.
Keep holding on to your metal scraps and plastic water bottles. Demands of Lexington residents have caused the city government to look into a new recycling program. Lexington City Council member Chuck Smith will head a committee to study options and then present a new plan to the council. Read Mary Alice Russell's full story at rockbridgereport.wlu.edu. The U.S. Postal Service agreed Wednesday to reverse changes that slowed mail service nationwide, settling a lawsuit filed by Montana Governor Steve Bullock during a pandemic that's expected to force many more people to vote by mail. The lawsuit was filed against Postmaster General Louis DeJoy in the U.S. Postal Service on September 9th. It argued changes implemented in June harmed access to mail services in Montana, resulting in delayed delivery of medical prescriptions, payments, and job applications, and of course impeding the ability of Montana residents to vote by mail. The Postal Service agreed to reverse all of their changes, which included reduced retail hours, removal of collection boxes and sorting machines, closure or consolidation of mail processing facilities, restriction of late or extra trips for timely mail delivery, and banning or restricting overtime. The agreement also requires the Postal Service to prioritize election mail. Meanwhile, the deadline to register to vote in Virginia was extended until tomorrow. Despite insane lines and miserably long wait times, early voters are casting their ballots in droves, both in person and by mail, shattering record turnout in some places. And with less than 3 weeks left until the general election, more than 14 million Americans have already cast their vote. Nadia Romero has the latest.
We are excited and we are determined to vote.
Voters in Harris County, Texas, shattering records again Wednesday, with more than 100,000 votes cast on day 2 of early voting.
I just want to say, wow, Harris County, you did it. We're seeing democracy at work, regardless of who you vote for, regardless of what party affiliation you have.
California has already received 1.5 million vote-by-mail ballots. That's 10 times the amount sent in by this time in 2016. In Georgia, more than 10% of the 7.6 million registered voters have already cast their vote.
Georgia voters are excited and setting records every hour.
And in Florida, a historic turnout is expected in Miami-Dade County.
With historic turnout, there are going to be lines. My objective here is to make sure that the lines are moving and that people are able to vote conveniently.
Now, on day 1 of early voting in Tennessee Wednesday, determined voters face similar circumstances as early voters in other states, braving long lines to cast their votes.
What people need to do is be patient and understand that longer doesn't mean something wrong is going on. Our goal is to count every vote accurately.
I'm Nadia Romero reporting.
Coming up on the Rockbridge Report, the investigation of the kidnapping attempt of the Michigan governor has uncovered even more secrets. See how Virginia is connected.
We've got a sunny and windy mid-October day today, which will usher in some pretty drastic temperature changes starting tomorrow. Tune into the Rockbridge Report for more on this week's forecast.
And later, a legendary football coach has now contracted COVID-19. Brennan will give you all the latest news in sports.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Lily Mott. President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, spent nearly 9 hours testifying Wednesday, her third and final day of questions from Republicans and Democrats. CNN's Phil Mattingly reports from the Capitol.
Well, for Amy Coney Barrett, at the time sitting in the hot seat in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, it has come to an end. Nearly 20 hours of question and answer session with Republicans and Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I think Democrats would tell you they didn't get many answers to any of their questions. And to some degree, that was by design. Supreme Court nominees, traditionally, following precedent, do not discuss cases that could come before the court, cases that are pending at the court, and she made clear that whether it was the Affordable Care Act or immigration cases, voting rights cases, many other issues, she was not going to weigh in specifically about her views or how she might rule, much, I would note, to the frustration of many of those Democrats. One issue that came up in particular that was quite interesting was Senator Patrick Leahy, one of the most senior Democrats on the committee, asking a series of questions about what Judge Barrett's thoughts were on executive power, including could President Trump pardon himself? This was her answer.
Senator Leahy, so far as I know, that question has never been litigated. That question has never arisen. That question may or may not arise, but it's one that calls for a legal analysis of what the scope of the pardon power is. So because it would be opining on an open question when I haven't gone through the judicial process to decide it, it's not one on which I can offer a view.
Once again, not revealing much at all, much to the chagrin of Senator Leahy and other Democrats, but again, following precedent to some degree. Now, the real question, of course, becomes what happens next. Well, there will be another day of hearings. The judge will not be involved in those hearings. There will be other witnesses, and then the committee will take up her nomination. The vote will be held over until next week. All 12 Republicans on the Judiciary Committee are in favor of her nomination, and nothing at all that we've seen up to this point is going to slow down her confirmation. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell making clear he has the votes to confirm Amy Coney Barrett as the next Supreme Court Justice, and he has the time to do it before the election, likely just a few days before the election. Right now, Amy Coney Barrett, after all the questions, after all the fireworks, or lack thereof, depending on some of those questions, is on track for confirmation before the election. Phil Mattingly, CNN, Capitol Hill.
The men who plan to kidnap Michigan's governor may not have stopped there. Special Agent Richard Trask testified on Tuesday that Governor Ralph Northam was a potential target. Trask said the 6 men involved mentioned Northam at a meeting in June. They were unhappy with COVID-19 lockdown regulations in both Michigan and Virginia. Northam's team was never notified of the potential threat. Read the full story on our website at rockbridgereport.wlu.edu. Some parents and children in Lexington have been asking for a return to in-person classes, despite health concerns from COVID-19. It looks like they'll finally get their wish. Zach England is with us at Waddell Elementary School with the latest. Zach?
The Lexington City Schools Board unanimously approved a return-to-school plan during their monthly meeting last night. Under the phased plan, kindergarten and first graders will go back to class October 26th. Second, third, and sixth graders will return November 9th, and the rest of students will come back the following week. Students will spend 4 days a week in person with a virtual day on Fridays. Superintendent Rebecca Walters said about 25% of students chose to remain online. And in other education news, I spoke with the superintendent of Buena Vista Schools, who is planning public meetings to gather input on his plan to consolidate the division's middle school and 2 elementary schools into one new building. Superintendent John Keeler introduced the concept at last month's school board meeting. He says the idea is to save money in the long run, but it's the immediate cost that presents a challenge.
In 2023, this part of the building will be 100 years old, and Enderley was built in the mid-60s, and of course, Kling was built in the mid-70s. So instead of trying to replace 3 schools, we felt like the concept would be to build one school, pre-K through 7, to meet all our needs.
Buena Vista Schools get 72% of its funding from the state, as opposed to 44% for Lexington City Schools. Keeler says the project could cost $12 to $23 million. That's a serious obstacle for a city running a budget deficit of almost $900,000 and a school division already so dependent on state funds. Superintendent Keeler says the state could supply some additional money, but not a lot. Charles Pyle of the Virginia Department of Education outlined some of the options.
The literary fund, and there's another one. And also, school divisions do receive funding for the lottery from the lottery.
But the literary fund has a long waiting list for its loans. The 2 districts that are next in line have been waiting since 2008 to get money. Regardless, Keeler said the idea is still in its early stages. They're evaluating whether they could do the project and comparing what building a new school here next to Perry McClure High School versus using Kling Elementary as a base for expansion would entail.
I think it's a good idea, and I do think it will be supported by the citizens of Buena Vista. That's why, we plan on having meetings to get their input right from the beginning. What do you think?
And folks in Buena Vista are already sharing their opinions. With the Rockbridge Report, I'm Zach England. Back to Lily in the studio.
Every Wednesday morning, locals flock to the parking lot on Jefferson Street for fresh flowers, produce, and baked goods. The farmers market, open at that location from April through Thanksgiving, is a favorite spot of students and community members. But this year, locals will see more masks and fewer jars.
There used to be only one requirement for the farmers market. Everything sold there had to be homegrown or homemade. Now, because of the pandemic, all sellers are required to wear masks. But that doesn't seem to be the biggest problem.
We have not found lids or jars. I'm not sure exactly what's the problem, but Walmart does not have anything.
NPR reports the latest pandemic-related shortage is not toilet paper or hand sanitizer. It's canning lids. Riley thinks canning supplies are harder to get now because more people are canning during the pandemic.
More people are doing their home preserving and probably more gardening simply because of the difficulty getting the fresh vegetables and other produce.
Canning is a way of life for local farmers. When they can't sell or eat all the vegetables or fruits they grow, turning them into preserves or jams means they last longer.
I grew up canning. I learned both from my mother and my grandfather, and my husband did the same thing.
But the canning supply shortage has farmers worried, especially as the winter months approach.
We usually go indoors for after Thanksgiving. But this year, because of COVID, we will not. We will have to stop after the Christmas bazaar in December, which will be hardship on a lot of farmers. Because I have all this stuff in here, I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
The farmers market is open every Wednesday from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. For the Rockbridge Report, this is Jen Nee.
Wildfires are still raging. Crawford Humphreys will show you the impact of the smoke's pollution. And then, Shauna will tell you what weather to expect as we head into the weekend. And later, recreational sports are coming back to Lexington. See how.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Shauna Muckle. Millions of people have been exposed to dangerous pollution on the West Coast after wildfires have turned out dense waves of smoke. Crawford Humphreys has the latest on the pollution's impact.
For over 2 weeks, large wildfires have ravaged Northern California and Napa Valley. Now, state officials are declaring victory as California's 2 largest wildfires are finally under control. The Zog Fire, which is responsible for 4 deaths and 50,000 acres of devastation, has been fully contained. The Glass Fire, which destroyed 1,500 buildings and homes, is 96% contained. However, the damage of these catastrophes wasn't just limited to those areas. Clouds of smoke and ash spread throughout the state. Taylor Roberts, a resident of Palo Alto, which is a 2-hour drive from Napa Valley, says even he was unable to get a breath of fresh air.
The air quality was horrific. I mean, you hear about places in the world like China and India that have the worst air quality. And in California, on those specific weeks, it was worse.
Now, though these fires may be dying down and citizens are finally able to breathe in a much-needed sigh of relief, the battle against climate change still remains. Low rates of precipitation and higher temperatures can turn a healthy forest like this one into a tinderbox fairly easily, and that has many scientists concerned about the future intensity and frequency of wildfires.
The timing of rain and growth is such that areas that historically would have short rainy seasons have longer rainy seasons, and then they grow a lot of biomass. Then it dries out, right? The faucet turns off, and then there's a lot more stuff there to burn.
At the end of the day, Professor Hamilton and others hope that these events raise awareness about the dangers of climate change and encourage stronger action.
Reporting right here in Lexington, I'm Crawford Humphreys.
We open up with a live shot near Waddell Elementary here in Lexington. Now we have another beautiful, surprisingly warm October day today here in Lexington. The high right now is 79 degrees with a low this morning of 55. The barometric pressure currently reads 29 and 89/100 inches of mercury. We have some of the most wind we've seen this season at 11 miles per hour right now, which you'll see later will bring some colder temperatures starting tomorrow. Our humidity is fairly average at 49%. As you can see, right now in the region, we have no chance of precipitation. Now we have remarkably similar temperatures over the rest of the region. Buena Vista right now is the high at 80 degrees and partly sunny, and up in Stanton we have the low at 76 degrees and sunny. Still pretty impressive for a mid-October day. Conditions in Charlottesville and Lynchburg look the same at 77 degrees and sunny. Meanwhile, we have identical conditions over in Covington and Roanoke at 78 degrees and partly sunny for both. Now we have some pretty scattered temperatures for the rest of the week here in Lexington. Starting Friday, we'll see some cooler temperatures. It's going to be 59 on Friday and a low of 34, as well as some rain. Saturday and Sunday, we'll see some more of the sun, but those cooler temperatures are here to stay. Saturday, there's a high of 61 and a low of 39, and Sunday, there's a high of 63 and a low of 45. Now, fortunately, on Monday and Tuesday, we'll see some more of the beautiful weather we saw this week. Both Monday and Tuesday have highs of 71 and lows in the 50s, as well as partly sunny conditions. That's all I have for this week's weather. Now to Brennan Black with sports.
Next on the Rockbridge Report, Philadelphia Eagles fans are going wild. See why they're so excited. And later, Lexington lost Books & Co. earlier this year due to COVID-19. See what shop took its place. We had another great weekend of football. The Washington football team lost to the Los Angeles Rams 30-10 as Washington quarterback Alex Smith made his return after a devastating leg injury 2 years ago. The Baltimore Ravens had another convincing win, beating the Cincinnati Bengals 27-3 and making rookie quarterback Joe Burrow's life tough with a staunch defensive effort. The Carolina Panthers also had a win this weekend, beating the Atlanta Falcons 23-16. And there will be no Thursday night football games tonight due to NFL scheduling. In NBA news, the Los Angeles Lakers became NBA champions once again after beating the Miami Heat in Game 6 of the NBA Finals on Sunday. This is the 17th championship for the Lakers franchise and the 4th championship for LeBron James, who was named Finals MVP. In other news, local recreational sports are back in Lexington. Registration has begun for 7 and 8-year-old boys and girls, and registration runs through October 23rd. Famed college football coach Nick Saban has contracted the coronavirus. The University of Alabama announced their head football coach's condition on Wednesday, and Saban says he tested positive for the virus that afternoon. He is self-isolating at his home and coaching via Zoom calls. And he points out that he is not showing any symptoms and plans to take another test to confirm that he has COVID-19. According to the university, its athletic director also tested positive for the virus. And anyone considered to have had high-risk contact with the men will be expected to quarantine. And I'll leave you with this final story. Eagles fans are rejoicing after learning that they will be allowed to attend live games on Sundays. Reporter Trang Do has the story.
Well, it's a slow start to the season because, the fans, for all the local businesses especially, give us all a hype.
It's a hype that will hopefully return to South Philly on Sunday, when the Philadelphia Eagles will welcome fans back to the Link for the first time this season as the Birds take on the Baltimore Ravens.
I think definitely having a fan base will help any sports team because they look for that energy in the stadium.
With the city limiting the venue to 7,500 people total, about 5,500 to 6,000 fans will be able to snag tickets. Season ticket holders who opted into the 2020 season will have the chance to buy up to 6 tickets together, starting on Wednesday. Frank Shearer of Washington Township says it's a great move, but he's opting out for now.
No, at this moment I wouldn't, just because of family bringing things back and all, and they're not playing really well.
Those who do attend the game will be required to wear an approved mask. No bandanas or masks with valves allowed. They will be seated in pods 6 feet apart in all directions. There will be mobile ticketing and cashless concessions. Though no tailgating will be permitted, businesses near the stadium, like Pastificio Deli, are looking forward to the business that comes along with home games, even with a smaller crowd.
There's no fans like Eagles fans, so having everybody back in the stadium and back in action is going to be, I'm sure, a big boost for not only the players, but for all the rest of the local businesses down in the area.
Just opened this week at 29 West Nelson Street, where Books & Co. used to be. The owners, both Washington and Lee alums, hope to welcome regulars and walk-ins to enjoy the same fun in a new and bigger space.
So we wanted a space that was large enough for retail as well as tournaments for games like Magic the Gathering or for sessions of Dungeons and Dragons or even private events like birthday parties. This space has all that.
Just Games Lex is open Wednesday through Sunday. The air up there must be pretty sweet for a 6'10" teen, that is, who just became a double world record holder. Jeremy Roth has today's Take a Look at This.
A Guinness record for the world's longest legs has this towering Texas teenager walking tall. Actually, Macy Curran has broken 2 records, one for longest legs on a female and on a teenager. The 17-year-old stands 6 feet 10 inches tall on legs that measure 53 inches. That means they make up 60% of her total height. Macy's mom says her daughter definitely didn't get her impressive height from her. In fact, she says she's the only one in her family who isn't tall. Macy says she does have trouble finding clothes that fit, but on the bright side, she dominates on the volleyball court. She says she wants to be the world's tallest model and wants to inspire other tall women to embrace their height.
For Brennan Black, Shauna Muckle, Lily Mott, and the rest of the Rockbridge Report team, I'm Donald LeCompte. Thanks for joining us and have a nice night.